I do really like the movie. I think it was a weird choice for like the filmmakers to insert a barking dog halfway through and like have it continue through the entire rest of the movie. It's more of a yipping. I thought that was a really odd choice.
I'm gonna lose my mind.
Hello, everybody.
No one's gonna answer you.
Oh. Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And that's Yippee the dog.
We are off our groove right now.
I don't know if it's going to pick up on any of the mics, but if it does, it's Yippee the dog.
Apologies. We have a backyard neighbor dog that has been barking for over an hour straight.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the 2003, I didn't even pull up Wikipedia, I can only imagine how it describes this movie, but...
I'm not on Wikipedia, but I could get there pretty quick. Fantasy comedy drama. Not bad. 2003 American fantasy comedy drama.
Big Fish.
In telling the story of my father's life,
Bravo Company, go!
doesn't always make sense. But that's what kind of story this is.
One of the best trailers ever.
Is it really? It's no Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, a film by Stephen Sommers.
Is he joking? He's not.
He's not joking.
So this is arguably, by many, this is the last great Tim Burton film. Isn't that what?
I don't know if by many do you just mean me? Because that's kind of how I feel.
Because a lot of even the reviews for this are like not since, like Nightmare Before Christmas has.
So,
which is also not a Tim Burton film.
Okay, so after this, he did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which I actually have kind of a soft spot for. I think it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is. And then The Corpse Bride, and then Sweeney Todd, and then Dark Shadows. So he's had good...
We like Dark Shadows enough. It's not like...
But this is by far my favorite movie of his that I've ever seen.
It's also one of the more grounded.
It's grounded, but it's still demonstrably Tim Burton. It's bonkers. It's like weird. It's whimsical. I just think like this is the Tim Burton that I want all the time. So
you outright love this movie.
This is, I mean, I don't want to spoil an upcoming episode, but this is in my top 10 movies.
Is it really?
Of all time.
Wow. I do like it.
I wrote that list a long time ago. Now I don't remember.
I do like it. Not that much. For me, there's a few places in the middle where it drags a little bit. And also, I very much appreciate the whimsy, the fantasy, but it's not my particular style.
Right.
If I were doing this, there would have been like a princess and a knight. You know what I mean? It like, I'm a little bit more traditional or glamorous in my fantasy. Yeah. But all in all, it's very interesting. I have seen this, I think, only twice. I think once when we lived in Hemingway, so maybe 12 years ago, and once now. I think I liked it a little bit more when I was younger.
Oh.
I absolutely appreciate it, but there is an element, it's the part of me that's now 36 years old, and I found myself relating to Billy Crudup more this time.
Sure.
Where, okay, it's mixed.
I mean, I get
it's
that.
Mixed.
Well, that's the thing for me is like,
Could you imagine never getting a solid answer out of your father?
No. I can't imagine that.
It's a different kind of withholding.
The the thing is that it's like, I understand that. Like, I am sort of on Billy Crudup's side a lot too. You're meant to be, you know, Albert Finney is meant to be this like larger than life person who's never like settled and, you know, been what he was supposed to be for his family. So I get that, but it's also, I understand then how when you were younger, you were like, Edward is where it's at. Like, that totally makes sense. But for me, it means more every time, especially like the death of a parent part of it and stuff, where it's like, it's very things we have to worry about now. And so it's like, and it also is just so moving and touching and like, you know, it's so lovely.
There's a moment early on at Will's wedding, rather, and Edward, his father, is telling this story, and Will just straight pitches a hissy fit because he's like, "This is supposed to be my day."
He does really bride it up right there. I don't know a lot of men. I've never met a man who was like, "The wedding was for me." He
goes very Laganja, Estranja, my moment, and it's like, buddy, I don't know how many weddings you've been to, but a wedding is about a couple people, and I'm like, okay, if his father's divaing it up through the entire weekend, fine. But we don't get that sense. We feel like this was the toast.
Time. Yeah.
And it's like, if your father wants to bring out the greatest hits, like, not to mention, is a great story.
It's a super great story. And I think the thing you're supposed to be the most, I mean, I don't know that you're
He's like willfully misinterpreting.
Of course he is. I think the thing is that, because we see a bunch of flashbacks of Will hearing this story at multiple points in his life but it's his father's not telling him the story. He's telling someone he's taking the attention that's meant for him away from him and telling the story to like the other people that are around. And so I understand the frustration, but I am sort of like, you must be fun at parties.
Again, there's a balance. And ultimately, that's sort of what I was taking from the movie this time at 36. It is the balance.
Yeah.
That when you have if you're poor Jessica Lange and you have these two men in your life, the movie doesn't focus enough on her.
It doesn't. Or Alison Lohman, who I want to speak about in a minute, but
you have to learn how to give and take and your place and stuff. And it's like, you know, my very, very much alive mother has her, you know, roster of stories. And when we have get-togethers or whatever, she goes through them. And there's a certain point of I'm like, oh, you know, let her tell her story. And then frankly, there's another time where I'm like, okay, Mom, we know. And that's not
the drama.
Well, that's not exclusive to my mother. I mean, it's the same for my father. It's the same for my friends. I mean, it's like anytime that we're hanging out with like new people that we're connecting with.
Yeah.
There is at least 5 stories each of us is kind of like, now's a good time for that classic.
100%. I mean, also Albert Finney in this movie reminds me a lot of my grandpa. Like that type of dude.
I also think it's interesting. This kind of touches on it, not entirely, but one of the things I love about that is how stories change over time. Some do and some don't, and the ways in which they do. And that's where it's like Will is sort of, he's very understandably so put off by his father doing this. And he's put off by the fantasy of it all. But in doing that, he, like I said, he's willfully overlooking or misinterpreting the point of it. You know, it's like one of my brother is a very sort of, not catchphrase, but he loves an adage. Or he loves like a mantra. You know, his number 1 is gotta let him live. Number 2 is never let the truth get in the way of good story. Yeah. And I would need a like safety button or something from him where I'd be like, okay, we need to turn this off. And actually, I want to know what happened when you were 18 or because I think
so. That's the issue, is that he doesn't appear to have one of those.
But it's also, you really get the sense that like they never tried.
Well,
like
I
Will
mean,
never actually tried to understand each other.
Because I believe that Sandra, she knows the score. You know what I mean?
Marion could.
No. Jessica Lange and Alison. I believe that she knows the score, but that's a different relationship. You know, being the wife of this man is different than being the son of this man who, like, you have to imagine he grew up in this shadow of this, like, amazing storytelling man who everybody loved and blah, blah, blah. That can't be easy to try to live up to. And so
even for Sandra, I mean, to live up to what he's made her into.
So I think that she's just along for the ride. I like that she just was like this. He swept me up in his whole thing. And that's just the way it was.
That's nothing new.
Yeah.
An artist and his muse. Yeah. You know what I mean? It like the lines blur there.
But by all accounts, they were in a deeply loving relationship. So it's like not it doesn't feel uneven in that way.
So then what is the thing? I wasn't ever getting this, and I guess you're kind of supposed to wonder what he's doing his whole life, sort of how he's always out away. And we get this beautiful scene with Helena Bonham Carter. I think
speaking of a muse.
Well, I was gonna say I think it also helps that this was towards the beginning of their relationship, so it doesn't feel as like wrung out.
Yeah.
Like now we're like we've gotten every last drop out of that we can get. But what do you get from that scene and from her sort of explanation? Did he have a relationship with her?
Not a romantic one.
Okay.
No. I mean, he liked her as like
considered
a
it
person, and I would say he kind of considered it, but she was in love with him, and he was like, I definitely can't do this because I love my wife.
The town was odd to me. So did he? And I mean, I guess this isn't the point of the movie, but I did find myself wondering what parts were true and what parts weren't. And I don't know. The town was very interesting. I guess, did you have anything that you wanted to say about it? I mean, did he buy the town? Like he really did that?
Well, yeah, because when Billy Crudup was going through the paperwork, he found the actual deed to Jenny's house. So, yes, he definitely bought the town.
I also thought it was interesting how she was also the witch, even though the timing of that doesn't work. Yeah. It just kind of, it's how stories work and how muse is muse. Yeah. But,
so he didn't buy the town. He facilitated the purchase of the town, where he was like a trust under his name. But yeah,
I don't know where to go from there.
Talk about Missy Pyle for a minute.
She doesn't really do a lot. I was surprised that she gets such a high billing.
She just like serves him dessert, essentially. I love the town Spectre because, well, the name is very funny and tongue in cheek and on the nose. But it's like idyllic, and like we are watching Schmigadoon, and it's very Schmigadoon in that way. I just think it's so cool. It's like nobody wears their shoes because the ground is so soft and it's grass all through town. There's no road or sidewalks or anything. I always really thought it was just cool.
And also the road is what brings about the town's downfall.
Yeah.
So I mean that right there is an allegory for
progress.
Yeah, but like how I keep wanting to say community, and that's not it, because community is good. But
just like the development.
Expansion, development, city, suburbs and stuff. It's like I love my suburbs, but over time I've really come to the conclusion that they're not great.
It's
not how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice little chapter. Apparently this is based on a book, and
I had no idea. I have loved this movie for almost 20 years now, and I did not know it was based on a book, or I just didn't take that on board, I guess.
I saw a couple of comments that were, of course, the unique and original observation that the book was better, and I am curious what is in the book. Like obviously that didn't make it to adaptation. But this is more of a personal thing. I don't love the circus stuff. I'm just not super into circus.
You're not a circus person. I think the romance of a late 1940s traveling circus is exactly at home in this movie. I don't love the circus as it stands today either, but they've also gotten rid of the elephants.
It was a way more grounded circus where it was like, look at this dog jump on its hind legs, and the audience was very wowed by that. Yeah. I do think it was a little inspired to make Danny DeVito a werewolf.
Yeah.
And sort of have that just plopped in there, like.
Yeah, it has no long-term consequences.
You would think that would be the moral of that story.
Nope.
But it is not. I didn't love the Korean War segment.
Okay, so I have something unfortunate to tell you, which is that Tim Burton owns that dummy and it lives in his house.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
He named it Lang.
I didn't, I don't know. Maybe that's one of those effects of living through the 2000s and being 2021. But I was like, even the, I don't know.
It's a little racist.
Can you say Siamese twins? That was.
No, you can. But it also.
You can.
But should one? It's also sort of weird because it's also just sort of a mashup of a lot of different Asian things, because it's like some of them are speaking Korean, but like he speaks Cantonese with the twins, and it was like kind of all over the place.
Because I was assuming it was
is speaking like a pidgin language.
I was assuming it was like Vietnam, because that's
Korea.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a Korean. Okay.
Yeah, it was Korea because it's too late to be World War II and it's too early to be Vietnam. Korea was in the 50s. So the timing is exact.
Okay, I'm there. Yeah, my first note is I was like, Will's just jealous because he can't tell a story half this good.
Well, but he is evidently a journalist, so it's like he's. But
that checks. That totally checks.
Facts only.
There's a really funny scene. It's a very effective scene, but there's a very like poignant scene early in the movie where they're like flying home because his dad is sick, and there's like a kid playing with shadow puppets. And you see him looking at it. And actually, he's a little bit amused, because I made a joke where I was like, is he going to explain to this kid that it's not a real dog? It's just like a shadow.
It's just an illusion.
Yeah. You're definitely right that especially when you get older and when you've gone through this so many times, because I don't think, like, I think when I was younger, the moral was easy to me. It was that story's good and Will is a curmudgeon. And I don't think that's as simple as this
movie is way more about, like, can you ever truly know your parents? Like, what does it take to come to grips with the relationship that you've always had with them?
I was thinking about that when we were preparing, and I'm glad you said that because it reminded me. But I'm like, the stories are so interesting because I feel like they're his window into himself. Because it's like, who are we? There's what I am. There's what I think I am. There's what my mom thinks I am, my brother. There's what you think I am. I mean, those are all going to be different. So which one is actually me?
The one that you know you are.
But again, I mean, to me, it's like I find the subjectivity.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why that phrase, my truth, irks me. It's because I get what it's supposed to mean, and I've come to a place where I allow it to exist, but it always irked me because I'm like, it implies that truth is relative and truth shouldn't be.
Well, there are though different kinds of truth where it's like scientific truth is not relative, it's objective, but the truth of who I am is, like you said, subjective to both me. I could have a warped view of who I am, and it's also subjective to you. You think I am you have a different idea of me than my husband has an idea of me. And the same goes the other way as well. And that's the kind of thing that I love about this movie. And I love what it says, where it just is like, you can never truly know someone, especially your parent. They lived an entire life before you even came into as an idea in their mind.
Well, and also because it, like, for a large portion of your life, and some people, this never goes away, but for a large portion of your life, your parents are an extension of you.
Yeah. And vice versa.
Well, you have a concept that they existed before you, but it's fantasy. I mean, it's just sort of the spun, like, I remember my parents have told me stories about their lives my whole life. And it's funny how the stories don't change. It's been the same, but it's funny how I interpreted it when I was 10 versus, because you know that thing where you assume your parents always knew each other?
Yep.
Like, I've placed them in each other's memories and stuff. And at, the age of 30, I'm like, oh yeah, no, they didn't even know each other in that story. Like, they didn't see Star Wars together.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever think about that?
Especially because, like, my parents only really knew each other for like a year before I was born, and which seems wild to me. When we were in West Virginia for my mom's memorial, my husband and me and my aunt and my dad got ripped on wine. And just were looking through photo albums, and my dad was like, oh yeah, this was my girlfriend. This was my and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like,
I've weirdly known, like, for a long time, my parents were kind of open about their other. Like, I was aware of that, but it's just like,
it's not like it was a secret. He just like had all his old photography stuff out, and he was like, oh, I dated that girl. Oh, I dated that girl too. And I was like, what are we doing right now?
Like I said, when I first watched this, sort of my takeaway was that, like, you know, braggadocio, you know, like, story is good, will bad. And that's not necessarily it. I mean, that is a interpretation. But I also think that a large part of this movie is about letting people be what they are.
Yeah.
And that sometimes you meet people in the middle. And it, like, especially because we frequently talk about, like, family and, like, found family and stuff. And it's like, obviously, we don't condone family being the most important thing if you're dealing with something toxic,
trauma,
or harmful. Of course that doesn't count, but assuming that you have a half functional relationship, I mean, you do things for people that you care about, and you make concessions. And because Will even does a few times in the movie, especially when Edward is talking to his wife, to Marion Cotillard.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
And she placates, like, she totally plays into it.
Yeah.
And she's both her and Jessica Lange are very beautiful presences in this movie. I know they're meant to be, and they are a little underdeveloped, and it does sort of, it doesn't smack of anything, but it is.
I mean, I think they're both so talented that they give it everything they can. This was
Jessica Lange.
This was Marion Cotillard's first American movie, first English language movie. Yeah. This is when I discovered her, as I was like, oh, she's amazing. And then I went back and watched some French stuff.
I was going to say, Jessica Lange, I don't know what, there's something about her, because
she's captivating.
She's perfect for this role.
Is she not the perfect older Alison Lohman? It's like remarkable to me. That's actually how Ewan McGregor got picked, is because apparently young pictures of Albert Finney are, like, identical to Ewan McGregor. As I recall,
Jessica Lange sort of disappeared for a little while, and isn't this right when she sort of came back into?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
There's like a late 90s movie with her and Gwyneth Paltrow, and
there's a couple. Yeah. She's in Titus, which I still want to watch, but I remember her having sort of a renaissance when she did. Grey Gardens.
She worked pretty regularly. Yeah, like, I mean, a couple years off in between a couple.
Well, I remember her having a renaissance when she did Grey Gardens with Drew Barrymore, and then that led into American Horror Story.
Okay,
and
yeah.
American Horror Story really solidified her place in pop culture.
Yeah,
because she talks about, like, what a wild ride that was. But
I believe it.
I think she mostly stands by it.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, hasn't she gotten...
I could give you some reasons.
Well, sure, but, like, hasn't she gotten, like, tons of awards and
2 Emmys,
like, and recognition and stuff? I mean, especially as, like, an older actress, that's, like, no one else is writing roles like that for older actresses, like Ryan Murphy.
Well, she said she was, like, in New York one time, and she was, like, walking past a group of, like, young men on a stoop, and she could hear them whisper, "Oh my God, it's the Supreme."
Love it. That's the thing, is, like, you know, we obviously, this is a little off topic, but we obviously have issues with Ryan Murphy, but, like, you can't say he doesn't give roles to older women. He's one of the only ones doing it out there, which is great. So
the same in this. Like I said, I mean, she's the one of the few things I remember from this movie is that bathtub scene.
Oh, it's so good.
I thought it was slightly weird that he turned into the fish. I kind of was expecting for her to turn into the fish.
Well, he is the fish because he's a tall tale.
Yeah, he's a big fish
story.
In a little pond.
Yeah. No. He's like I caught a fish and it was this big. He's the, like, because he's, like, hyping up all of his stories. So he's the fish for sure.
You just have the naked woman a time or two. And I just kind of kept waiting for it to be.
Just whimsical. Just cool.
We talked a little bit about Helena Bonham Carter as Jenny. I also do love her as the witch and the eye. And
I will say, if you are at all inclined to crying during movies, this will probably get you, especially at the end.
So it does. That is the other factor for me, is that, you know, I have really only lost both of my grandmothers, and both of them, when it happened, it was expected. But having said that, it sort of made me think in particular about my grandma, and especially, like, who she was 10 years ago, who she was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it really did sort of touch me in a different way. And I mean, I know because you've lost your mother, and it's like, did it have any?
Yeah, I was kind of misty from the beginning this time, in a way that I have not been before. But like the end when Billy Crudup finally like comes around and he's like telling the story, he's like, he has to make up a fantastical story for his father so that he can, you know, go peacefully or whatever. It's really tough to like, but it's so beautiful. It's just like so heartbreaking.
I glanced at the Rotten Tomatoes because it was like 85 or 75 something. It was fresh, but just out of curiosity, I tend to read a handful of the good and then one or two of the bad just to see what a negative take would be.
Someone call it schmaltzy, didn't they?
Well, the review, he was like, it was something about it being like uninspired or whatever, but he was like, you know how it's going to end 10 minutes in. And I was like, okay, Will.
Yeah, dipshit.
That's not the point.
The fact that you know Albert Finney is going to die from the beginning.
And that there's going to be this scene with all of the...
It's not the point. That's not the point.
You know that his son's going to come around and there's going to be some grand parade of...
Yeah, congratulations. You took intro to screenwriting. Jesus. No, but I like it. It's just like everybody's there and like, you know, Will like accepts the things that his dad has told him and then he like takes him to the water and Jessica Lange is waiting there in the water. It's so pretty and it's so... And Marion Cotillard ties his slippers together and throws them over the telephone wire. It's adorable. I love this movie. It just makes me feel good. It's sweet. I also haven't watched it in like easily 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was glad we watched it again. I did always kind of want to save it for Father's Day, but
I mean,
no, but we're good. This is good.
I was like, we can sit on this.
No, that's so long. Sit on this for like 8 more months. We are trying to make money. So if you want to go throw us some money, we are on Patreon. So I'm watching this show. I didn't do that right at all. Patreon.com/so I'm watching this show. We also are on Twitter @so I'm watching or Instagram @so I'm watching this show. And everything links out from the website, soimwatching.com. And other than that, just
if you're
like
interested in a tall tale spun by a madman that gives you little glimpses into who he is as a person and the people that he knows, you can buy Fairy Tale on Amazon.com.
Yep.
If you want to know what it would be like if it was slightly more glamorous.
Oh yeah, pretty glamorous. Although again, those dresses that Jessica Lange wears, unbelievable, real blousey.
So
right.
Yep.
Bye. Ugh. The whole time.